at will can put them on any
Pretty
poll
much.
that they choose.
Pretty much right now, the way the state is regulating these is pretty much open that they can go on the right-of-way. Again, we're asking for, though, is that coordination of effort here when they do put them in there, and at least give us some notification about the fact in case we get questions as well from citizens.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Sure. All right. I think that concludes then the city attorney's agenda. We move into the public agenda. And first on that list is the clerk of Superior Court, Linda Pierce. And she'd like to speak to us about the Board of Equalization. Welcome. And also just to let you know, you're always welcome on any of the agendas. This is the only one where there's a time limit. So if you'd ever want to come back on the mayor's agenda or city manager's agenda, you just let us know. I hate to put a time limit on an elected official, but on public agenda, that's the only one where there's a 10-minute time. But welcome.
Okay, thank you. My name again is Linda Pierce. I am the clerk of Superior and State Courts, as well as the appointed elected official to provide oversight and supervision of our local boards of equalization. I appreciate your invitation, but tonight I'm here more on an informational crusade. I'm here along with the majority of the members of our boards of equalization, and we did have our director of the boards of equalization, but I believe she had to leave due to the weather. We are here because we all feel that there is a right available to our citizens of which they know very little in our county. There's not a lot of attention given to it. And that is an administrative right to appeal property assessments on their property. The boards of equalization, in short, are boards that consist of citizens of our county who serve on these boards to hear appeals from fellow citizens on assessments that they receive on their property value. They also do a lot of other things, but I think for the purpose of tonight, that's the primary emphasis here. Our boards of equalization themselves are very unique. They are themselves not appointed by other local government entities or individuals, but they themselves are appointed by another group of our citizens who themselves are selected to serve on the grand jury. Our grand jury appoints these members, and of course then the members serve on the administrative boards. We have 3 boards here, and I've got most of the members here tonight. One of the most valuable tools that our citizens have is their right to be able to be heard for an appeal in the least costly and most efficient manner possible. And these boards do that. These boards were created many years ago, but it was only in 2010 that our legislature decided, after having quite a few complaints around the state, that even though the boards were themselves selected by the grand jury, in a lot of our counties, they were supervised and controlled by the Board of Tax Assessors, which, of course, they themselves are the ones that make the decisions the citizens are appealing. And whether it was from just the perception of a conflict of interest, or in many cases where there actually, unfortunately, did occur conflict of interest, taxpayers felt that they were not receiving a fair hearing. In 2010, the General Assembly met to try to come up with a way to assure that the taxpayers felt that when they were heard by the Board of Equalization, that they were receiving an impartial, fair, and neutral hearing, and were not being under any kind of undue influence in doing so. In that regard, they selected the clerks of Superior Court as being one of the elected officials in the state of Georgia who do not work for the local government nor are under the control of the local government. And therefore, we are neutral and we are impartial. And I think also, given my role as the clerk of Superior and State Court, I'm, of course, very familiar with the fact of having to be impartial and neutral in the administration of my job. This has been, without a doubt, I think, one of the most rewarding experiences that I've had as clerk of Superior Court. I don't think that there is any evidence of true citizen democracy is much apparent as there are with these boards of equalization. Because, as I said, they themselves are appointed by other fellow citizens. They are very diligent, and they basically take their jobs very seriously. Each year, since I've taken over, the legislature has made a few changes every year, primarily to just make to assure as much as possible that these hearings are conducted as fairly as they can. This last year, they passed two primary pieces of legislation. One, they have increased the amount of mandatory training for our members from what it was before. Each one of
Just a warning,
I'm not
Linda, but 5 more minutes on.
Okay. Each one of our members has to have 40 hours of education, extensive education on property tax evaluation when they are first appointed. Thereafter, they have 8 hours of continuing education. Starting this year, however, each time a board member is reappointed to serve another term, they have an additional 8 hours of training that they have to take. That's one of the changes that were made this year. The other is that any taxpayer who feels they would like to appeal the decision of the Board of Equalization and go to Superior Court, now the fee has been reduced from the normal $225 to $25 in order for the citizen to appeal to Superior Court. I think the best evidence of what kind of the true citizenry of these boards and the fact that of how representative they are as a cross-section in our community would be for me to stop talking, and if you would just give me a few minutes, I would like for all of them to come up just to simply introduce themselves so that the public can see that the member and understand who the members of these boards are. And as I say to the grand jury every year, there is nothing. They do such an excellent job in making these appointments to these boards, just as these board members take their jobs so conscientiously in trying to make sure they're as fair as possible to all parties, whether it's the local tax assessors or the citizens of our county. And I think for me as an elected official, they remind me every day of exactly why I ran for office, because this is about as pure a form of democracy as we'll ever see. And if they would like to please come up and just please briefly just introduce themselves.
Linda, can you tell us where they're from? Are they all from Columbus or from around the region?
Yes, all of our board members are from Muskogee County. They are selected to determine property assessment appeals for Muskogee County. So we have a total of 18 free boards, but the ones that weren't here tonight had conflicts of interest that they just could not avoid. However, I'm really surprised and gratified to have that many of my board members actually come here tonight, and I think that's just more evidence of how seriously they take the jobs that they do.
Well, I just want to say, if we do a bad job, your legal fees are going to go sky high. So, and I don't think my board has had a single appeal, because we listen to these citizens and we listen to the city. And we make fair decisions. And this training, I think I've had 68 hours of classroom in order to do this. So it's a lot. But I think every one of these have done a really fair job to these people to appeal these things. And you're going to see this go sky high if this freeze passes. So.
Good evening. I'm new to the board, but it's an opportunity for me to. Reginald Hart. I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I was in the military. Got an opportunity to serve on the board. I'm now retired and a citizen of Muskogee County, Columbus, Georgia. So, but it's a good opportunity to learn about the tax laws, things like that. So I'm really enjoying it.
Hi, I'm Carol Barron, and I'm on the board. This is my second term.
How long have you term?
3 years.
I'm Alton Russell. I've been on the board about 4 years, I think it is. I'm in my second term, and I'm glad to do it. It's a privilege to serve in this place. Thank you.
I'm Susan McBride, and this is my second term.
I'm Johnny Hemingway. I'm also in my second term, serving on the board.
I'm Annie Kennedy, and this is my second term.
I'm Diane Robinson, and this is my first term.
I'm Pat Stevens. This is my first term. I've yet to attend training. Long-term, born and raised resident here. There are people who have worked with me here in this room. So after 42 years, I retired, and now I'm going to do this for a little while and hopefully bring equality to good decisions.
Good evening. Dick Norman. I've been on the board 6 years, I believe, and I just want to tip my hat to Linda and Sharon and everybody in the clerk's office. They've done an outstanding job shepherding these various folks through these positions. So thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
This is our grandfather.
This is the dean of this delegation.
I'd just like to tell you, my name is David Moore. Some people call me DL. Call me anything. Doesn't matter. I'd like to also answer Ms. Thomas's question she asked, and our attorney, I don't think, understood the question or didn't know the answer. If you apply for your homestead exemption on April the 2nd, then you cannot get it. You have to wait till January the 1st. And your homestead exemption does not start until January the 1st when you apply for it. So anything you had prior to that, it is not retroactive. And if you waited 3 years to apply for it, you could not get it for those other years you owned the property. It would not be retroactive. It's one of the things the Board of Tax Equalization does. We also hear homestead exemptions. Do you qualify for homestead exemptions? This board and all of these members have the same qualifications plus one more as the Board of Tax Assessors. We have to be residents of Muskogee County. They do not. Now, that's my understanding from the 20 hours we just took in Savannah. I've been a board member of this for approximately 16, 18 years. I've enjoyed it. I've met a lot of nice people. I know a lot of you. And my family's lived in this area since 1832, and we've never made enough money to move. So, no, we really love the community. We love the fact that our homestead exemption has kept families in some of the neighborhoods on the south side, and I think many of you will agree with that. Their low taxes kept them out there, and it gives stability to that neighborhood. Pop, you'll have to agree with that too in your neighborhood. And I think most of you will. And Glenn, I think you know people in the South Columbus area that are there. They have a homestead exemption, and it's kept them there and helps solidify that neighborhood. So, there's pluses and pros, and I don't know which side I'm on. But I am on the side of the citizens, and I thank you very much for listening to me.
And before we finish, I'd be remiss if I did not also make an appeal to all the citizens out there. As you can gather, being on the Board of Tax Equalization is a very time-consuming job. It requires a lot of dedication and time and effort on behalf of the people that do serve. And if you have any interest in serving on the board, please contact my office. We have applications online at www.muscogeacourts.com. We have links. If you just call me, I turn all these applications that I receive into the grand jury every time we have openings. But as I said, it is a time-consuming effort, and these board members not only spend a lot of time in training, but you have to commend them for when they're hearing these appeals. They can be here from very early in the morning until 7 or later at night, just listening to these appeals. And if anyone ever had a chance to just sit in and listen to one appeal, you would never doubt that the citizens of this community, how seriously they take being able to serve the rest of their citizens in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Woodson.
Ms. Pierce, I had a question. Are there any term limits to serving on the board?
No, there are no term limits.
Okay.
Anyone can be reappointed to the board.
Okay. Do you have, and I don't know, because I found it very interesting, your presentation today. I found it very interesting, and I think many, many other people out did too. Because sometimes people get these tax forms, they want to appear, they come back, they ask a question, they get scared, and they say, forget it, I'm going to lose, I'm not going to win. Why even try or go through this process? And I was wondering if on your website, or if we had city manager something on the CCG channel or somewhere where citizens can go and get educated on what actually they do and what is the actual process. You get the form, you don't agree with it, what steps should you take? Because sometimes people feel intimidated, and sometimes they think they got to go and hire an attorney and pay $600-700, sometimes $12,000 before they can come see you. So they say, you know what? I don't agree this, but I don't want to pay for an attorney. I'm not going to go because they're not, they don't understand the process. So I was wondering, what did you have out there besides today's great presentation to educate the public?
Thank you for asking the question. I was going to give you the my BOE website. You can go to my website and get there, but I think also we usually have references linking between all the different agencies as well. We have a lot of material on that website about what the boards of equalization are. And in fact, I must say that the first meeting I ever had, when I called a general meeting with all the members, some of whom are still here from that first meeting. One, that was the first time they'd all seen each other. But two, one of the first things they wanted me to do was to rewrite the letter that goes out to the citizens to make sure that they knew everything that we could tell them legally about what was available to them, including being able to go to the tax assessor's office and pick up their files or look at their records, which many of them did not know that they could do. So we continue to try to improve on that. Probably we're going to try for commercial properties, and it's not going to be at any cost to taxpayers, but is to try to start instituting Skype, because some of the, especially commercial ones, can get extremely expensive for the taxpayers when they have to bring people back and forth for these meetings. And I hope that that will help facilitate some of the hearings as well. But we have put out a lot of information, and in fact, one of my newest board members, I think if she's here tonight, actually precipitated this meeting, because a few years ago we did do a lot of publicity and then we haven't done much. And she mentioned when she first got appointment, we really do need to get out and do more education again. So what we're doing, this is our first step. Also talked to Michael King with CCG. We're going to have some interviews with some of our board members being present to let the public know that, and we're going to also be doing some more outreach with the public media as well. And our boards don't take positions on political questions. What they do is what they're supposed to do by law, one of which is to determine fair market value. But that's what they do. And I think that the citizens should know that none of these people have political agendas. I would suspect that among them, you're going to have a variety of opinions on just about anything. But the one thing they do have in common is they do believe that it is their responsibility to determine the fair market value in the best, most responsible way possible.
Thank you.
That concludes the comments. Thank you so much, and thank you for your service. We appreciate you greatly. All right. Next, we have Mr. Nathan Jackson, who would like to speak to us regarding a complaint. Mr. Jackson, hello. If you would just state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Nathan Jackson. I reside at 4511 Esker Court here in Columbus. Ladies and gentlemen, the council, Madam Mayor, while most of you consider this a trivial matter, I trust you'll hear what I have to say and be as outraged as I am concerning the abhorrent refusal of the city departments to actually enforce the law that is written.
Yeah, you might want to speak just a little bit. There we go.
How's
Gotcha.
that? Can everybody
Good,
hear me?
better.
Wonderful. That's okay. In the summer of 2014, my neighbor graded their property to allow the addition of an above-ground pool. While no homeowners association exists within my immediate community, there is a covenant that prohibits such an addition as this. I truly believe, however, that in this particular instance, a person is allowed to make these decisions for themselves without the involvement of their neighbors. However, since the property was regraded, drainage at the rear of the lot was required to be redone in order to allow the rainwater that flows down the hill that my community rests upon an avenue out. This drainage system was inadequately placed and constructed. This has caused a significant amount of water to back up onto my property due to the non-existent maintenance that should be conducted on a semi-regular basis. I contacted the Division of Special Enforcement in October of 2014. Central to my complaint was the Columbus Code of Ordinance, Part 2, Article 3, Section 13-109, which states, in a natural drainage situation from one lot to another, shall be unlawful for the owner of the lower lot to restrict the flow of water willfully or by neglect or otherwise to cause water to stagnate on the upper lot or lots. The layout of the subdivision from when it was built was designed to have water from storm runoff flow to the rear of the property, then further down the hill out to a drainage culvert that's owned and maintained by the city. After reviewing the online aerial photographs dating back to 2007, you can clearly see the water flowing between the houses at the rear of the yards. An officer from Special Enforcement arrived in 2014 to review the case and told us that the neighbors were in violation of this ordinance. He left his contact information on their door. The neighbors got the message, and I spent the next 72 hours with police officers at my residence in order to quell the retaliation my family received in the form of harassment, death threats, and slinging the vilest of insults. Whether or not a written citation was issued is irrelevant. The neighbors, at the request of Special Enforcement, adjusted their rear drainage pipes and allowed the water to continue to flow down the hill. Life continued on, with a small water problem remaining, though manageable. In July of 2015, the water issue had returned in much greater force and continued to deteriorate dramatically as time went on. My household took steps to alleviate the problem on our side of the fence to no avail, spending countless hours in my backyard in order to see if a solution can be found without having to involve the neighbors. It's important to note that at no time did any work that was conducted alter or increase the flow of water that was originally intended by the drainage plan when the subdivision was built in 2002. I spoke with the owner of the neighboring property in early January to inform him of the water issue to see if they could be willing to action a solution. On the 15th of January, the homeowner reluctantly sent a plumber to assess the situation. The plumber stated to us, as we happened to be home at the time, that the pipe that was laid for drainage was too small and improperly installed. Even though the homeowner was aware of this information, he's not taken any steps to address this issue. I contacted the Special Enforcement Division. They stated on the phone on 27 January that according to city records, this issue had been resolved in 2014 and there was nothing they can do. I reiterated, yes, the issue had been resolved in 2014. However, by neglect, the issue had represented itself. We were told by Officer Smith that he would come by the next day and review the situation. And it was very important to note that no officer arrived at my residence and no courtesy phone call was made to reschedule. Only after I had repeatedly called did I finally get Officer Smith on the phone. He told me yet again this issue did not fall under his department. There was nothing he could do. I spoke with his supervisor, Officer Poole, who originally came out in 2014 to assess this issue, who in a rude and condescending tone said that this was not his department. The water issue was mine alone. In fact, the water issue did not exist. After this phone call, I put my thoughts to paper and addressed the managers of the city council members. Everyone that may have an interest in this case was a recipient of this email. I placed phone calls to other departments trying to, again, find some resolution to this issue. On 5 February at 1:24 p.m. is when this case becomes very interesting. My wife received a phone call from Mr. Brown at the Office of Public Works. In this conversation, he stated that a letter was being sent to my residence informing us that our complaint had come to its conclusion and that nothing was going to be done in regards to the city intervening. In addition, he stated that the water problem was not as significant as we make it out to be according to the information he had received. My wife asked him where he had received this information. He stated from Officer Poole. When my wife's retort to this statement was, if you had just signed and dated a letter with this information, it would mean that Officer Poole just perjured himself as he had not been out to my residence since 2014. It was at that point all dynamics of this situation changed. He called my wife back at 2:22 p.m., told her that he had removed the letter from distribution, and I received a phone call from Miss Short, manager of special enforcement, who's stating that an officer would be at my residence within minutes. Officer Underwood arrived at 2:47 p.m. He heard the complaint, took pictures of the water issue, agreed that if this was his yard, he'd be as angry, as upset as I am. However, he attempted to explain further.
It's okay, that's just a warning. I'm resetting for 5 minutes.
It's fine. However, he attempted to explain further that the code we are talking about only applies if there's a dam built by the neighbor or the drain is physically obstructed by trash and boards. He was adamant that the natural terrain was at fault. I explained to him that this terrain is artificial after the grading project conducted in 2014. What is most disheartening is that he agreed that the water was restricted, and yet still I was refused the city's intervention. After he departed, approximately 1 hour later, we placed a call to Officer Underwood trying to determine if the meeting that was mentioned to us during his visit that was scheduled for the evening of 5 February about this water issue that would have multiple department heads present was an open or closed door meeting. We were told it was canceled. In addition, we received a call from Mr. Brown again at 4:45 p.m., in which he stated that this matter had been resolved, no new updates to the course of action would be made, and a letter will be in the mail. I received a call from Mr. Ellis from the Department of Public Health. During that conversation, he told me that there was no health violation. However, if mosquitoes are found to be breeding in this stagnated water caused from this issue, that I would be held accountable and fined from the city. I did, however, receive one singular piece of advice from the city's Department of Engineering, that if I was to go out by a high-pressure hose nozzle, that I might be able to snake the pipe and get the water moving. This has seemed to work for the time being. The water has begun to flow. Though the question I pose to this council is this: if the only way to fix the water problem is to break the law by clearing pipes on property that is not my own, thereby trespassing, what is the recourse that I have when this situation represents itself in a few weeks, a month, a year? I keep getting told that this is a civil matter between neighbors, and I need to hire an attorney. After consulting with one in the Columbus area, the advice I received is this: good luck getting the city to enforce their own laws. And then I can take this to court, but it will cost approximately $10,000 before a judgment is granted. If 13109 states in a natural drainage situation from one lot to another, it shall be unlawful for the owner of the lower lot to restrict the flow of water willfully or by neglect or otherwise cause water to stagnate on the upper lot or lots. And the preceding law is much more interesting. And 13-110.1 states, when stagnant water is being maintained on any lot or premise in violation of the preceding section, it shall be the duty of the health officer or any responsible servant of the city to notify the party or parties of such violation. The written notice shall set forth how, when, and in what manner corrective measures are to be performed to comply with the preceding section, and eliminate the stagnated water or otherwise provide adequate control of the public health hazards or nuisances caused by the stagnated water. The code further describes a nuisance in previous sections. In 13-98, the existence of any things mentioned in this article and the existence of any matter or thing in the corporate limits of the city which shall or does tend to the immediate annoyance of the citizens in general, or which may be manifestly injurious to the public health or safety or tend to corrupt the manners and morals of the people or any considerable portion thereof shall be, and the same is hereby declared to be a nuisance and being abated as such. I'm a simple soldier. I take pride in the code of ethics and the duty my oath compels me to uphold. Is this not the same type of oath that each officer and legislative member in America is held to? Integrity by far is the greatest asset of a soldier and the greatest thing that makes us human. City employees surrounding this issue have shown them to have neither ethics nor integrity. I care little about disciplinary action by this body, and that is neither my intent nor desire. At no time should a civil servant be allowed to commit perjury in a report to influence the outcome of a case. At no time should the city officials be so corrupted and blind as to allow this situation to go unanswered. When did it become the norm in today's society that enforcement officers pick and choose which laws to enforce and how to enforce them? I believe that this is the most frustrating thing about this issue. Being a soldier, and anyone that has ever served will agree with this statement, that the regulation states what the regulation states. It is not a soldier's right to interpret the regulation, just as an enforcement officer has no right to interpret what the law says. They are merely there to enforce as it is written. If they are not, then the law needs to be rewritten. However, that is not the choice for enforcement officers. That's the job of our elected officials. We are a nation, city, or community of laws. We are anarchists. Unlike most soldiers that come and go, I've made Columbus my permanent home, and I believe in this city, and that here would be a place I would enjoy raising my children. I simply ask that this body act to uncover why this complaint has fallen on deaf ears and to ensure that the Special Enforcement Division acts upon their mission statement, along with all other responsible parties within the city body of governance. That in this case, the city would in addition use the law to ensure that adequate measures are in place to remedy this issue. The soil around my house is so saturated that according to Mr. Jim Berry, drainage technician for the city of Columbus, it'll take a full year for the soil that my property sits on to dry out. Until that time, I will constantly live with the anxiety that there may be looming foundation damage to my house, that my children cannot use their backyard, that I will have to be watchful for ants continuing to move into my house due to the soil saturation, that the standing water that rests on my property that is caused by this issue will breed mosquitoes that will eventually attract frogs and snakes into my yard, further putting at risk the safety and my children's physical well-being.
Mr. Jackson.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me ask you some questions here.
Of
Give
course.
you a chance to take a little break. That's a whole lot of information, so
Yes,
I'm working
ma'am.
with as fast as I could hear. And certainly I'm sure there would be other questions, but just from what I hear, what I thought I heard, it sounds like you do have what they call a private nuisance, where some private person has done something that is injuring your property.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, because an entity, whether it be the federal, state, or local government, has laws which prohibits that, does not necessarily mean that they're publicly enforced. So
I fail to understand, ma'am. If we have
Right.
a law, why can't we enforce it?
Well, it could be that it is civilly enforced, and so that's what I'm struggling with, is what laws there are exactly. Like, for instance, you can bring claims all the time that somebody injured you in a car accident because they were exceeding the speed limit, which is a public law, and they ran a stop sign, which is public, whatever. And so, and thereafter, whoever hit them for money and insurance coverage and so on and so forth.
I agree with
to
ma'am.
remedy, hold on a second, let me finish. To remedy the problem. So I'm trying to sift through, because what we really want here is the solution, correct? I mean, you want this resolved.
Yes, ma'am.
Not a law school course, not, any of that other good stuff. And so I'm not sure who the attorney was that you went to go see at first. I think the flippant response you got may suggest to you that you need to get another opinion. But these types of nuisances are very serious issues, and they certainly can. Every case has its own nuance and its own texture, and will have its own life and journey. But these are things that can be resolved quite quickly, and sometimes they can even be resolved pro se, depending on the amount of damages. So you gave us a whole lot of information, it seems to me, and there were a lot of things involving the city that I'm very concerned about, and some of the statements you made regarding the tone and the reaction and so forth. It sounds like that frustration and disconnect, and whether or not there was rude or inappropriate behavior, stems from the nut of the problem, which is the city has somehow determined that this is a private civil matter that may well violate public laws, but it's private civil matter. And so I think that it may be that that's where this is going on.
Ma'am, that may be possible,
Yes,
but
yeah.
they did come out in 2014 and have them adjust their drain pipes. So basically what happened...
And had who adjust the drain pipes?
Officer Poole came out, saw the issue, left his contact information on their door, said, you guys need to adjust your drain pipes. This water
Right.
issue needs to go.
Right.
They freaked out. I spent, like I said earlier in my statement, was 3 days with officers at my house from this. But they did adjust their drain pipes, and everything kind of went away. So what I'm assuming is to happen is officer came, said, you need to fix this. They fixed it. Officer came back, said, hey, good job.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing was really need to be done. They fixed it. And that's fine. But where is it then a year later when this issue represents itself because of inadequate maintenance on a drainage easement, that why can we not have the officers do exactly what they did prior to and say, hey, this is a water issue that needs to be fixed? I have pictures of it, ma'am. I can show you. There's a literal swamp in my backyard. It's literally I can step down into it, and there's up to my knee of mucky, nasty mud that just stinks, smells. It's a swamp. I literally have a swamp that grows in my backyard.
Okay. Well, Mr. City Manager, do you have any thoughts on this, or the city attorney? I mean, it's a private nuisance. I think we agree on that. I think what he's asking for is repeated civil public enforcement somehow. So anyway, yeah, did you want to speak to this?
Madam Mayor, staff passed
Yeah.
to you a letter to each of you, and I really don't. I think you've really summed it up, Madam Mayor. It appears to be private property matter between two property owners, and it's
And it looks like the decision was made that the property was not in violation of the two specific code sections. It does not mean that you're not being damaged.
right.
Okay, it does not mean you're not being damaged. It just means.
And I agree with you, Madam
Yes.
Mayor, but the problem is, though, is that also in a grading situation where a property has been regraded, does not require a city permit to do that in order so that you do it correctly, where that's not on file. There's no permit for that. They just came back there and ripped up their backyard, and that's fine. I have no problems with that if they were done it right, and I don't have a swamp growing in my backyard. But if there was a grading project that was done, it was inadequately done, it was improperly done, then why is not the city diving into this and saying, this is wrong, we need to fix this?
Well, I want to hear from the city attorney, and we've got a counselor who has a question too. And I want to look into this just because you've made me curious, but with a lot of information here, and I'd like to see. But my gut reaction is that this is exactly the reason why there are separation of powers between the judiciary and the legislature, because courts are uniquely equipped to hear this amount of information and make a determination related to a specific dispute related to property. But again, I want to make sure we're enforcing laws that have public impact and all that good stuff, and so I'm happy to take a look at it. With that, Clifton, did you want to say something?
I got a couple of comments, Mayor. Since from this, I can't determine what all the facts are, and I don't think this council can, and it's not fair for you as a council body to be put in this position to try to resolve a claim. I would suggest that the city engineer take a look at this property, that this gentleman consult an attorney with some real estate knowledge that can look into whether a developer has made a mistake here. If this is a new house, is there a warranty that might cover something like this? Has the upstream neighbor taken action or built a structure that has caused damage that there was improper? Normally, you're entitled to the natural flow if you're a downstream owner. Well, we don't know what the upstream owner has done, so there's a whole lot of questions that need to be answered.
And we've got another counselor who wants to speak, but I can tell you, Mr. Jackson, I'm happy to get with the city manager, the people who are involved, see how much of this I can sort through, and then give you a buzz.
Look forward to your phone call.
But I suspect it's going to be a recommendation that you seek some sort of private legal advice. And there's all sorts of referrals that we can make to the state bar, who has referral systems, and local bar associations that have referral systems. So you get to somebody who knows what they're doing. And time is of the essence, because there are time limits on claims that you
4
may
years.
have.
I looked it up.
Yeah,
4
so
years.
well, if it's continuing, see, these are the kind of things that lawyers know. If it's continuing, there may be some roll along of that, but I'm going to let a lawyer who looks at your case advise you in that regard. Let's see here, Mr. Baker.
Yeah, thank you. And I apologize, I went back to my records, and I don't have any information until February of 16, so from you on this particular case. But I did ask the city manager to please look into it and follow up. I am concerned, do you know what is the source of the water? I mean, is it just rainwater, or is it?
Yes, sir. It is rainwater. Basically,
Okay.
the property sits, the entire subdivision, which is one street cul-de-sac, sits on a hill. And then on the backside of where my property lives, which is, I believe, north side of it, on the north side of this street, there's another hill that goes up.
Okay.
So basically, my property and the properties along the northern edge of this street catch all of the rainwater that comes down the hill from east to west, as well as we catch all the rainwater from north to south.
One thing you did mention, you said there was some type of departmental meeting that was canceled.
Yes, sir. From what I was told from from when Officer Underwood arrived, he took a look at this and said, yes, it's restricted, but this law only applies if there's trash or boards or something that you can tangibly see that's blocking the drain pipe. But, I mean, there, you can see the pipe. It's not working. It hasn't worked for the better part since July. But, yeah,
I mean, I would like the city manager to take a look with our engineering and see if we can get you an engineering.
I've had engineering out to my residence, sir.
Did they?
They looked at it and they said, yes, there's pipe down there. It's not working.
And that was it, okay.
And so, I mean, because it is a private matter, but it is a nuisance, and it's going to soon morph into a health hazard. As this water continues to stagnate, this is going to breed mosquitoes. And so from the Department of Public Health, they tell me, hey, you got to treat that, you got to fix that, you got to get that water off your property, or we're going to fine you, and we're going to cite you.
Mr. City Attorney, is our officers the only ones that can cite environmental court issues, or can a private citizen request an issue to go to environmental court?
No, you have to call a policeman or a special enforcement officer to look into an alleged set of facts that would rise to a charge. So,
But that would be a criminal or quasi-criminal
Right.
charge. He could bring a private claim in a civil court.
right. This gentleman, in my opinion, needs some serious legal advice. I don't know if he needs an engineering report or he can get something from our engineering department that could help him, but
Right. I would like for our department to take a
Right.
look at it, to see, in
Right.
fact, to take a look at the grading issue, whether there was no permit issued or work done without a permit, clarify the permit issue,
Right.
to see if we can understand what happened, and then hopefully get him an engineering resolution, and then, yes, it may fall into his hands to resolve, but at least he may have more understanding of what to do.
I really don't mind about damages, sir. I don't care about damages. I just want the water to go away.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's the damages don't have to be monetary.
I don't.
Okay,
I
so
just need the water to move.
okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yep.
I'll be happy to have the Public Works Director and our city engineer to take a look.
Yeah.
Obviously, they've already looked.
Well, I think
And-
let's do this.
and-
Let's get updated on where we are and what we do, so we don't just send them out futilely to do what they've already done already. I mean, let's get with the city attorney, you and me, see what they've already done, and then what else might be done that could be helpful, perhaps, and then make the appropriate referrals, because I suspect you're more in the private sector than the public sector. But that's just a judgment
And
at this
if it
point.
comes to that, ma'am, then that's
Yeah.
what it comes to. But
Okay.
I don't have $10,000 paying
Well,
an attorney.
and again, I'm not going to second guess that lawyer because I don't know what y'all talked about, but you
He
need
said
to
even
talk to
litigate
some other
this through
folks.
to-
You need to
to-
talk with
But
some
if,
other folks.
Yeah, but if the problem was resolved at one point and then it's come back from your comments,
Yes, sir.
it seems like it could be resolved again. And
That's exactly what I'm saying,
and
sir.
if we could help, it doesn't mean we can get a crew out there to fix it for you.
I'm not
until we
asking
look
for a
at it,
crew to
but if
come
we can
fix
get you
it.
some help,
If-
information-wise, I would like to see us do that.
If in 2014, Special Enforcement did something about this, and then now they refuse to do it again, just because by neglect this issue has represented itself, and therein lies an issue. But, just telling someone, hey, you know what, you need to do some maintenance on your drain pipe out there, why don't you go and snake the pipe? If they can just do that, that would make my life so much easier
I
and maybe
understand.
alleviate this swamp that's growing.
I understand.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. And you also get a judgment saying that, by the way. Let's see, Counselor Huff.
I was sitting here looking at pictures. There's storage units in the backyard.
No, sir. I have some pictures
No,
on
I just want to ask a question based on what I'm looking at.
Okay.
The houses around you have storage units or so?
There is one that's
One has-
upstream from me.
Okay. And the privacy fence, that's upstream?
That's downstream.
Downstream, okay. Okay, and the water's coming from which direction?
The water is coming from the upstream, which is where the storage shed is placed, and that flows along the natural where these two hills meet at the bottom of that big old hill that you see. It should be off on your left-hand side as you're looking at that storage unit. There's a natural crevice that meets right there. And when this property was regraded in 2014, which is where the privacy fence is, which is downstream from me, that natural crevice was interrupted, which then caused all of this to backflow. And it backflows directly onto my property, and that extends for 10, 15 feet. And it is a knee-deep mud hole of wonderful George Clay.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, we have Counselor Barnes.
Excuse me, I didn't quite hear all you. Did you say you were are you military?
Yes, sir. I'm currently active duty.
Well, did you go to JAG? Why not go to JAG?
JAG doesn't support civil matters. They would just recommend me off post.
What did they say? What did JAG say?
They would recommend me off post to a civil lawyer. They
Did
don't
they?
handle civil cases that are within the city. So I did try that avenue.
Okay.
I wonder, too, if they might, and again, we're going to do what we said we're going to do, get back with you, but I bet they have referrals that they make to get you
Absolutely.
a lawyer who can actually respond to your specific type of claim.
And absolutely. And again, it boiled down to the fact that I don't have $5,000 to $10,000 to litigate this.
Yeah, I just, again, I think you need to talk to some other
I just
folks.
don't have the money on
Okay.
my
All
meager
right, well,
soldier
we're going
salary.
to take a look and get with you from our standpoint and then see if we can't refer you to the appropriate entities
Appreciate
that can
that,
refer
Madam
you
Mayor. I look
specifically.
forward to your
perhaps.
council's response.
Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you
your
much.
time.
All right. We're moving on to Frank Brasky, who's representing Columbus Makes It, and would like to speak to us about STEAM U18.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me.
Hello. Oh, wait, we've got, hold on just a second, if you would, Mr. Brasky. We've got Counselor Huff.
Yeah, I just want Mr. Brasky to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was a misprint on the one should have been an L and been stimulate.
It is
rather than
stimulate, that is
yeah,
correct.
Stimulate.
Yes.
That one should have been an L.
Oh, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes a lot more sense, doesn't
Okay,
it?
thanks.
Okay, there we go. Mr. Brasky, to you.
Sure. So, yeah, I appreciate the invitation, Councilman Barnes and Councilman Huff. They've actually seen some of this presentation before, but to the rest of you, I'm probably remiss. I should have probably presented to City Council a long time ago about my crazy, audacious plans, but I guarantee you what I'm going to talk to you about tonight is very different than what you typically hear about, and that is about stimulating our economy and bringing people out of poverty through the stuff between their ears. And this is something I'm very passionate about. I'm a product of the Muskogee County School District. Some of you may know the Frank Brasky, who's actually my father, who taught at Marshall Middle School for 35 years. And I was Teacher of the Year for several times. But I founded a small nonprofit organization called Columbus Makes It, which is about teaching people how to make things again. And so much like a gym membership, you might go to the gym to get in shape, to exercise your body, we have the types of equipment that you can use to exercise your creativity and your ingenuity, to actually make things again. We work a lot with the school systems as well as a variety of citizens, returning citizens, as well as veterans, into figuring out what they might want to do with the rest of their lives or careers, trying to hopefully find a way to turn their life's passion into their life's work in a way that's actually economically sustainable. So that's a little bit about what Columbus Makes It is. And we're right down the street from, do you know where the Coca-Cola Space Science Center is? Right across the street from that, in the old RVRC, the old dialysis clinic, which is now the RVRC, we've been graciously provided a 8,600 square feet place to actually help people make things. So we have things like laser cutters and 3D printers, a full wood shop, where you can come in and actually learn how to use this equipment to make things. And so we've been open essentially since really January officially, but we've been working with a variety of volunteers. We've done hundreds, I would say thousands of hours of volunteer service creating things and artifacts for a variety of different services and institutions in the area, specifically with United Way. But tonight I wanted to talk to you about an event that is coming up, and that is called Stimulate. And the notion is, have you all heard of STEM education? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. We're woefully underprepared in the United States with respect to the number of engineers, mathematicians, scientists, and technologies that we produce. We have negative unemployment, right? That's actually, for those people that have those skills, that's a really great thing. Dr. Summers with CSU will tell you, all of his students that he graduated got jobs. If you go to Columbus Tech and talk to them about what they're doing from a technology and career preparation perspective, 98 to 96% of them have placements. We're not producing enough people that have these kinds of skills. And I'm here to tell you, in the war on talent for getting very smart, energetic, creative, interesting people to come and stay here, right now we're exporting those people from Columbus, Georgia. Over the last 8 years, and my participation in a program called FIRST, which stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology, we've been exporting 22 children to go to Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Literally dozens upon dozens of engineering and science and very technology-oriented students are leaving our area, and they frankly have no reason to come back. Right? We're showing them the world. I get thank you notes from Apple, Google, Intel R&D. These are really bright kids that we're generating and creating and fostering right here in town. They go off, and we really have no reason for them to come back. And I want to change that. And this is my attempt in the way that I know how, with the things that I have in place, to make it happen. And so Stimulate is the first of a kind in the nation. And it is a celebration of brilliance and ingenuity. And we've got, coming up March 11th and 12th, we have 4,800 young people coming to this area to look at the latest and greatest technology being produced by 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders in this area. Only one of these teams is from this area. Dr. Lewis and his wife actually came to one of my events we had back in January. We had 33 teams participating in a first LEGO Robotics League tournament, which is essentially a group of elementary and middle schoolers building their own autonomous robots, achieving these different tasks on a field. And his wife asked him a zinger of a question: how many of these are ours? And I had to say, none. Because we don't have a single Muskogee County School District team that has one of these teams. These kids get scouted. They get options. If you ask some of them where are they going to go to school, they will tell you, whoever pays me the most. So March 11th and 12th, we've got, and by the way, thank you, Mayor, for agreeing to speak and present to an incredibly crazy crowd. There's going to be about 5,200 people in that arena. We've got 40 teams of large industrial scale robots. These are kids that are, none of them are over 18 years old. They're programming, designing, and constructing industrial scale robots that they can go to work at Kia tomorrow, and they can show the others in the shop floor how to update their machines. They're not doing, they're not playing with toys. These are machines that could literally kill you. And they have, respect for safety. They understand the mechanics and the physics and the chemistry and the materials management that goes into all of this. They also know how to build a business. They have to go out. It costs about $25,000 a year to run one of these teams. And they get zero funding from the school district to do that. So they have to go out and raise all this money. And so they go out and they do car washes, and they do sponsorships and bake sales, and you name it. They're doing Kickstarters. There's a variety of different types of things that we're doing. So we're teaching them to be entrepreneurial. And they're not asking for handouts. Everything they do is with respect to an earned value back. If you are one of the sponsors and you want to sponsor the team, they will bring the robot to your facility and they will let you drive it around. They will show your engineers or your other non-technical people how it actually works. And they'll let people get their hands on them and experience it. It's an insane amount of fun. I think you'll really enjoy it. So I encourage all of you to come. You are all my VIP guests. I will actually take you on a tour and show you stuff that will restore your faith in humanity. And you'll go, okay, I will be taken care of because these are the kinds of kids that I want taking care of me when I get older. And so with that, I can talk for a long time. Oh, yes, ma'am. So we've got the Civic Center and the ice rink. So we've got 1,200 people from outside of Columbus are coming for 3 days, starting Wednesday night, to be here for the first robotics competition. It's a 3-day tournament. Friday and Saturday night, we have robot sparring or robot battles, like BattleBots, like you might have seen on TV. For the first time since 2012, Fort Benning is actually going to be bringing out their military robots. Because of sequestration and BRAC, they haven't been able to have these robot games or Robo Wars like they've had in the past. We'll actually be doing that. The Battle Labs is coming out and demonstrating their bots. I've got teams coming from the Carolinas. I've got the RoboJackets from Georgia Tech bringing 7 of their world competitive robots to show to children and adults alike how this actually works. So it's free and open to the public both days. However, for Friday, since we have so many people coming for the STEM Career Day, we do ask that you get with me and try to register ahead of time so we can make sure that we're keeping within fire code regulations. And because the ice rink only holds 1,500, so we're running 1,500 kids through at a time, actually 1,480, to go through and make sure we have all of that covered and we have good, logistics. We've got sponsorship from Pratt & Whitney, has fallen in love with this concept. Not only are they a silver level sponsor, but they're also sponsoring the team as well as providing dozens and dozens of mentors and helpers and volunteers. We do need a lot of volunteer help. My purpose for having the field trip day is not to be a punishment for those teachers that have to go, but I want those teachers to also be able to enjoy the day and visit with folks. So we would really like to have at least 2 to 3 volunteer helpers, just nice, polite adults that can go with those classes so that the teachers don't have to always be worrying about the kids. They can also be learning and interacting with the technologies. We'll have educational displays, technology displays, as well as some recruiting booths from local universities, so Columbus State, Columbus Tech, Auburn University, Troy University, and a couple of others are going to be there because these are the kids that they definitely want to go to their campuses because they're brilliant. So thank you for the question. And by the way, I have a whole presentation that through the wonders of the media, it's gotten lost in the shuffle, but there's a website. If you go to steamulate.com, Steamulate, which is just STEAM. So STEAM is adding arts and music into STEM. We think that makes it a lot more interesting. I've been in the technology arena for the last 28 years, and I can tell you most technologists need pharmaceuticals or some other training to be nice people. And so we're trying to get them engaged with an appreciation for the other forms of life on the planet so that they can get along and be nicer people. That's Steamulate, so STEAM with the letter U and the letter L and then the number 8.com. If you just put in there /City Council, it'll actually take you to this presentation. I have hard copies of that as well, if you guys would like. So you'd like a hard copy?
Yeah,
okay.
Real quick. Thank you for being here. To the council, it was something to see one of the meetings with all the volunteers and the passion of the parents in wanting to see this happen in Columbus. And the parents wanting Columbus to be a good host and to have our best foot forward and to try to get a grip on this so that we can host it maybe 2 or 3 years in a row going forward. If you would, and you have time, if you could put the agenda together and email it to us.
Okay.
So that we'll know what's going on.
Okay, I'd be happy to.
I think we'll have a better chance of being there.
Yes. So I'll tell you there are 2 main key events. The first one is the opening ceremonies at 10:30 on Friday morning. That is when we will have a series of guest speakers, including the mayor, as well as some other dignitaries, and the games will open. That's at 10:30, and then the next one will be at 1 o'clock. We are actually having a VIP reception. So if you can envision the back of the Civic Center overlooking what would normally the ice hockey team would be, that whole back area will have as a reception area, and we'll be explaining what's going on and what you're seeing. This year's game was designed by Disney Imagineering, and it's about the size of a volleyball field, and you have 6 robots at a time competing, 3 from one alliance and 3 from another, and they're actually catapulting boulders back and forth over a castle. So it's going to be quite a spectacle.
And the 11th is 10 o'clock start time?
Yes. So technically it starts on the 11th at 8 a.m. There will be teams actually out there scrimmaging and doing robot inspections and whatnot. But the games will begin at 10:30. They will go all day till about approximately 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then at 8 o'clock, we're adjourning over into the ice rink where we actually will have battle bots. So there'll be sparring, and that's open to the public. And there's this listing of weight classes and rules and whatnot. And that will be a lot of fun just to see up close and personal how those bots work with each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Woodson?
Yes, part of my question, Councilor Huff asked if you could send us an agenda of it so that we can have it and look at it. And is this like a good flyer to put on Facebook or? Because there's a big packet here.
There is a lot of
something-
information there. So there is a website that kind of goes and breaks all this down into the venue, into the various events. So we're doing drone racing, robot combat, and then the robotics competition, as well as an academic event called Let's Grow STEAM. It is a lot of stuff, and it is pretty ambitious, but we think this is something that we can grow into year after year. And some of you may have heard of a festival out in Austin called South by Southwest. It started about 28 years ago. It's a multi-week festival. It's responsible for literally hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of economic development in the Austin, greater Austin area. And I would like to think that we could start something like this to begin to house a series of incubators for robotics companies, technology companies, tactical responders, healthcare technologists, et cetera, out of this group. Because you've got a lot of very brilliant, self-motivated children that are interested and engaged by the competitive aspects of